Hi, this is Cheryl Gallant, your Conservative Member of Parliament for the tax-conscious riding of Renfrew-Nipissing-Pembroke. The housing shortage had been a problem, mostly in big cities like Vancouver and Toronto, but the draconian, unscientific measures forced upon Canadians during COVID drove people to less congested communities. Homelessness has now invaded even small towns like Renfrew and even villages like Barry's Bay. Housing prices skyrocketed thanks to Trudeau's out-of-control spending and a Bank of Canada governor who was asleep at the switch. Canada and his media allies did not like that narrative. They needed alternative facts. Suddenly, foreign investors and money laundering were blamed for the housing shortages. So Trudeau had to make it look like they were actually doing something. Since people were blaming the high housing prices on foreigners, who better to target? So, tucked in last year's 304-page budget was a section outlining a 2-year ban on foreigners buying residential property. But what would a socialist budget be without a new tax? Of course, their solution to all problems is to invent new taxes. To cash in even further on the housing shortage and homelessness, a 1% tax is being imposed this year on residential property owned by foreigners. But that's not all. Also snagged in this dragnet is a requirement for some Canadians to pay a new tax. It's called the Underused Housing Tax, the UHT. The Underused Housing Tax Act came into effect on January 1st, 2022. It imposes an annual 1% tax on the value of vacant or underutilized residential property in Canada that usually applies to non-resident owners. In some situations, however, it also applies to Canadian owners. Every owner of a property who is not an excluded owner under this act must file an annual information return, even if an exemption applies such that no tax is payable. The Underused Housing Tax information return is due on April 30th, 2023, and failing to file the required return results in significant penalties. Affected owners who are individuals are subject to a minimum penalty of $5,000. Affected owners that are corporations are subject to a minimum penalty of $10,000. And that's not even a 1% tax. To find out whether or not this return applies to you, please click on the link in the description. This return is not part of your annual, regular, personal, or corporate income tax filing. If you have any questions regarding this tax return, contact your tax preparer. Just like the Liberals' plan to change the climate, it turns out their plan to solving the housing shortage is just another tax. Tell me how that solves the problem. Now, if you subscribe to the GNN online newsletter, you'll already have the links to the government information. Live from Ottawa, this is Cheryl Gallant, wishing you a good night.